The morning sky over Nairobi carried the purplish tint that hints at rain without quite promising it. Kamau Karanja savoured the subtle coolness as he unlocked the door of Musafiri 254, his Matatu, a Toyota Hiace, whose panels glowed in red, green and gold graffiti beneath decals of flying lions and crescent moons. The roof rack held a modest spoiler no wind tunnel had ever blessed, and inside, where Kamau truly took pride, sat a fortress of speakers wired into an amplifier the size of 2 car batteries. They were his weapons, his passport through traffic, and his vocabulary in a city where bass lines stated social rank as clearly as bank balances. At 5:42 a.m, Kamau hit the starter. Diesel shook the van awake, neon lights blinked, and, as was ritual, he inserted the flash drive labelled Morning Glory. The first track was a familiar boomba groove, thick with kicks that rattled nails in telephone poles along Thika Road. Passengers would board wrapped in sweaters, their eyelids half closed, but by the time Kamau exited Githurai 45, they would be alive, head-bobbing, unbothered by the snail-paced convoy ahead. Yet today, amid the customary folder, Kamau noticed a file he didn't recognise. Nth Dimension DJ Kiboko, exclusive. A red star pulsed beside the title on the dashboard display, like an invitation only fools refuse. Kiboko was a legend in the underpasses, rumoured to splice frequencies that could shake mangoes off trees. If Kiboko had slipped Kamau a track, destiny itself must have moved through the USB slots of Eastleigh Market. Kamau smiled, cued the song, and opened the sliding door for the first cluster of commuters. He did not notice the faint shimmer that crawled across the windshield glass, like sunlight sneaking through swimming pool water. The Matatu filled quickly, a security guard nodding off behind mirrored shades, a hairdresser wrapping her braids in a scarf, 2 university students comparing dream careers, and a grandmother who clutched a woven basket full of arrowroots as if they were newborn. As always, Kamau's conductor Otis dangled half outside, calling destinations with rhythmic certainty. CBD, CBD, Korja, tea room, Korja. Kamau's foot eased onto the accelerator, and the city scrolled forward in bright billboards and the faint aroma of mandazi frying beside potholes. At Allsops, he pressed play. The track began in near silence, a soft ticking like a wristwatch amplified to auditorium size. Then came layered synths curling upward, harmonizing at impossible intervals. When the beat finally struck, every speaker in Musafiri 254 exhaled a note of such depth that Kamau's palms tingled upon the steering wheel. The passengers jolted, wide-eyed. Some laughed, assuming it was mere showmanship. But Kamau felt something else. The sensation that the van's wheels were skimming above tarmac, that the weight of diesel engine and steel chassis had lightened to a whisper. The speedometer glowed 60k, then 75, though he swore he hadn't pressed harder. Otis whooped. The security guard forgot to nap. The arrowroot basket wobbled in Grandma's lap. At Mutaiga Interchange, the synths bent pitch, not higher or lower, but in odd spirals, as though turning 3 corners at once. Ahead, a traffic light switched from red to green to red again in the space of a blink. Vehicles around them jerked in inconsistent fragments, like frames missing from a phone video. Kamau exhaled. "Where? Otis, did you see that?" "See what?" Otis shouted over the drumming bass. Before Kamau could answer, the world stuttered. Street lamps flickered, true dawn jumped forward by minutes, and then everything froze in crystalline silence. Kamau found himself parked at Githurai 45 stage, engine idling as if the last 30 minutes had been ejected from the recorder of history. The Matatu was empty. No security guard, no students, no arrowroots. Inside his pocket, the time on his phone read 5:43. AM 1 minute after he'd first started the engine. A breeze carried the smell of Nile perch bones and charcoal, the same way it had every weekday of the past year. His heartbeat thudded louder than Koboko's sub-bass. Had he dreamt the drive? He checked the flash drive. The mystery file still sat there, but the red star no longer pulsed. When he thumbed it, the track time displayed 00:00/00, as if the song had never existed. A lesser driver would have crossed himself and fled, but Kamau was made of Nairobi grit, the stubborn sort that wrestles with puzzles rather than surrenders to them. Another full load of passengers boarded, a different mix this time. A city council clerk, a vendor of second-hand shoes, teenagers from Kasarani. Kamau pressed into traffic. He chose a different playlist, avoiding DJ Kiboko just in case. Yet, at the identical stretch of Muthaiga, with no supernatural soundtrack, time again glitched. The traffic light pulsed red-green, red headlights smeared in mid-air, and Snappy was back at Githurai, 5:43 a.m.ing, alone. On the third pass, he noticed a detail he'd missed. Across 4 lanes, another Matatu bore his same graffiti, same roof spoiler, same Misafiri 254. The doppelganger roared alongside, then accelerated past as though to dare him. Through its windshield, he glimpsed the driver's silhouette, broad shoulders, checked shirt, and a beige cap that matched Kamar's exactly. Horror prickled up his spine. That was him, or rather, him from the other loop, rewinding ahead by some unknown rule. The road forked. The mirror version swung left to Pangani, while Kamar's tires clung to Thika Road, unwilling to follow. The universe, it appeared, was duplicating both machine and man, loops stacked upon loops. On some cycles, Kamau accelerated early, on others he braked. He abandoned passengers, overcharged them, played silence, played gospel. Nothing helped. The reset always arrived, precise and mocking. He began tracking each run in a sticker-dotted notebook taped to the dash. He was on loop 13 when the first passenger noticed too. She boarded wearing an Ankara shawl stitched with sunflowers, an older woman with shrewd, alert eyes. Halfway to Motega, she asked, "Driver, why do I remember this song, but the radio is off?" Kamau granted her a side glance. "You remember what, Mama? The same ride, the same cars. That lorry with chickens losing feathers in the wind. All this already happened." Kamau nearly cheered. If someone else carried memory, then perhaps he wasn't losing sanity. At the following reset, he told her everything. The triple changing light, the timestamp, the shadow self. She introduced herself as Professor Nyeri Wataka, retired mathematician from University of Nairobi. She extracted from her bag a pencil, old parking tickets, and began sketching symbols too dense for any road sign. Infinity lemniscates woven with drum icons. "Time," she muttered, "is rippling at the beat's tempo. Frequency 126 BPM. That's your Kiboko track's rate, yes?" Kamau nodded weakly. The Matatu's speakers amplify it, vibrating not only air, but chronology. The loop resets at each bar's beginning. 8 bars, hence about 15 seconds. But in macro scale, your loop is 30 minutes. Fascinating cadence. The only path out is a phase shift. Break rhythm so the echo cannot align. That means you must outrun yourself. Outrun myself? My wheels can only go so fast before police or potholes finish us. You misunderstood. You must outrun the pattern, not the speed camera. Play a counterbeat, accelerate beyond the earlier copy, and cross a boundary the echo hasn't reached. Kamau felt sweat bead beneath his cap, but a plan, however mad, beat driving in circles until the Rift Valley filled with discarded loops of his consciousness. What? All as it should be. Drive. The Rift Valley is darkened. Ha! But a plan, however mad, beat, driving in circles until the Rift Valley filled with discarded loops of his consciousness. Loop 21. Pre-dawn again. Kamau bribed a petrol station attendant for an extra jerry can. He would need the fuel. Otis believed none of the story, but, loyal as ever, took the conductor's seat. Kamau waited until the Matatu brimmed. He made sure Professor Nyeri sat directly behind him. Then he gave Otis a nod. Otis clanged the door, banged twice on the panel, and Kamau punched the accelerator. They launched from Githurai onto Thikai Road earlier than usual, weaving through spaces hardly large enough for bicycle handlebars. Horns protested, speakers remained mute. Cars swerved. Kamau did not slow. Approaching Muthega, he saw it, the doppelganger Muzafari 254 sliding into traffic 200 meters ahead, right on schedule of the prior loop. Its brake lights flickered, uncertain. Kamo felt a swell of adrenaline. Half hail fear, half sibling rivalry. He flipped the sound system on, but instead of Kiboko's song, he selected a frenetic Jengatone remix at 138 BPM. Urgent as heart palpitations. A beat leaked out like rapid gunfire. TKG, 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 TKG. Professor Ineri tapped her pencil to count. The traffic light ghost flickered, tried to trap them in its tricolour yo-yo, but the music's tempo misaligned with the old frequency. The ripple wavered. Buildings along the road looked simultaneously new and half-constructed, as if time couldn't decide how many years should cloak their concrete. But the Matatu did not reset. Kamau slammed into the right lane, overtook a tanker so close the side mirror buzzed his paint. His double glanced back, their eyes locked, identical faces gnashed by worry. The road compressed. Vehicles multiplied, duplicate versions fading in and out, some transparent as memories, some solid enough to force panicked swerves. Kamau steered between a phantom saloon car and its tangible twin, trusting their edges wouldn't converge at the same second. Nyeri shouted equations he couldn't hear. Otis, half dangling from the sliding door, was now yelling, "Coming through! Coming through!" in both Kiswahili and whichever celestial language made ghosts shift aside. At Pangani Underpass, the space narrowed into tunnel darkness. Kamau heard across steel walls the echo of his other Matatu's engine, a roar identical to Musafiri's, but slightly behind time, like a drum slap rebounding off hillside stone. His rival had slowed, confused by the new tempo. Yet tempo alone wasn't enough. They must cross a boundary completely unscripted by previous cycles. Kamau swerved toward Muranga Lane, onto a route he had never taken during any Lupatite road lined with seed stalls and boda-boda repair kiosks. Passengers screamed, more from novelty than danger. It was their first unscripted horizon in perhaps infinite repetition. But loops fight back the way tsunamis retreat. Before a bigger wave. The air thickened, sound distorted. The Jengatone beat started slipping, dragging to slower pitch as though the old 126 BPM vortex was sucking all rhythms toward itself again. Kamau's double cut them off at the lane's mouth, materialized from improbable geometry, horn blaring, speakers broadcasting that cursed tick-tick synth. Muzafi Prime and Muzafi Echo now ironed side by side, chassis kissing. Two identical Kamau Karajnas glared through windscreens separated by barely an arm's span. Across dashboards, two sets of passengers screamed reciprocal curses at who they believed was a reckless imposter. Professor Njeri pointed at Echo's roof speakers. "Their BPM is eating your face. Overpower them. But the track is slowing. If technology fails, improvise." She thrust her basket today, containing a pot of ugali for her grandchildren, into his lap. "Muffle the sub." Kamau, baffled, yanked the driver's side woofer grill open. Hot air and dust billowed. He shoved the aluminum cooking pot into the mouth of the bass driver. The next kick collided with curved metal, echoed like thunder in a well, and discharged not frequency but pure shockwave. A clang louder than any note he had ever played erupted, rattling window glass for a block. Echo Safiri's windshield shattered first. The duplicate, Kamau flinched, lost grip, swung wide, scraping a guardrail. His track hiccuped. In that micro-deep, the loop grid missynced, building shadows elongated, morning sun jumped an arc, and a loud crack like a quail egg splitting tore through the sky. Kamau felt the steering wheel lighten, then stiffen with new realism. The copy behind him blurred, decayed into motes of static, and by the time they cleared Murunga Lane onto Forest Road, there was only one Musafiri left, engine growling with mortal fatigue. The dashboard clock read 6:29 a.m. an hour, beyond the point every loop had reached. Kamau could smell sweat, diesel, and burnt amplifier capacitor. But time, marvellous unbroken time, moved forward. Passengers broke into applause. Otis slapped the side panel until his palm stung. Nyeri sagged with the gentle triumph of academics whose proofs survive peer review. Nairobi, busy and indifferent, flowed around them in ordinary chaos. Kamau let the Matatu idle outside Koja bus station, resisting the urge to kiss the tarmac. Police officers ambled, giving no sign they had witnessed dual-of-dimensional minibuses. Vendors sold newspapers. Headlines concerned the shilling, a Senate quarrel, football drama. The world, apparently, had no notation for timequake. A few passengers stayed behind as others disembarked, curious to know more. Kamau, still shaking, answered what he could. "I think we were stuck inside a song," he told a teenager, "but we found the key change." "Driver," the teenage girl replied sagely, "next time just play gospel." When Safari eventually rolled homeward for the next run, it did so minus amplified extravagance. The bass woofer, dented by an ugali pot, produced a thud reminiscent of a coughing elephant. Kamau didn't care. Silence felt melodic enough. Professor Nyeju remained until the last stop. She clutched her bashed pot, now resonant with cosmic secrets. Before leaving, she scribbled on the back of a fare receipt. "Rhythms shape roads. Beware loops begun by songs you did not request. And should echoes reappear, remember, shift the beat, change the road, and never race yourself on equal terms." She tucked the note into her shirt pocket. "If Kiboko offers you another exclusive," she said, "tell him to test it on rivers before roads. Water, at least, flows both ways already." Her cackle lingered as she descended. Kamau sat, hand on the wheel, watching Nairobi afternoon tilt from grey to amber. Somewhere out there, traffic lights switched, as they always had, at measured intervals uncorrupted by bass lines. Somewhere, a version of him might still be looping in pursuit of a future this reality would never meet. He whispered a prayer for that echo, then signalled, merged, and drove on. Evenings along Thicker Road acquired a new texture in the weeks following. Kamau's customers noticed he played quieter sets. Old classics, Swahili ballads, any track far removed from uncanny BPMs. The city, forgiving but never forgetful, absorbed the different. Mitsafiri 254 still wore its lions and moons. The spoiler still rattled when he reached 70 kilometers, yet the Matatu felt older, wiser, like a boxer's scar after the title fight. One Sunday, Kamau waited in line at a petrol station when a biker tossed him a USB stick through the open window. The casing was neon pink, the label shouting, "Galaxy Remix, DJ, Kiboko 139 BPM. Kamau twirled the stick between fingers that remembered phantom roads and split skies. He thanked the biker with polite nod, slipped the device into his pocket, and that night buried it at the bottom of a dresser drawer beneath expired insurance forms. He dreamed of beats manipulating time, of racing mirrored selves, of passengers suspended between heartbeats. But each dawn he woke to steady clock ticks, to birds perched on cables, to Nairobi carrying on in kaleidoscopic resilience. On the dashboard of Musafiri 254, Kamau taped a handwritten reminder, "It's not the speed that saves you, it's the song you choose to steer by."